Federica Zille da Zon. Mister, non me ne voglia, ma vorrei partire dal capitano, da Biraghi. Cristiano,
Don't take any offense, Vincenzo. I wanted to start with the captain, Cristiano Biraghi. How many times have you thought about that picture of you almost apologizing to the away fans last year? And how many times have you wanted to rewrite that history here in Athens? First and foremost, good evening, everyone. You always think about it because when you have wins and defeats as we had last season, there's such huge events that you tend to stay with them throughout your life. Only a year has gone by, so it's still fresh, if you will. We were so gutted. Just as when there are joyful experiences or negative experiences, you try and actually share them with all of those that were with you on the journey, and that was the case for all of our supporters last season. The same has gone for this season. In general terms, we were all gutted, those of us that went to Prague. It was a negative experience, but of course we had to share it with the fans. Now we're here. We've done a very good job to make it back here for the second consecutive final. We come into the Conference League final unbeaten, so we have a great deal of self-belief, and we've got huge respect for our opponents. We're ready to give everything in our power to try and do away with the negative experiences we had last season and have positive ones this time around.
Next question, please, in the middle.
Good evening. My question is for the head coach, Vincenzo Italiano. I'd like to ask you whether you also feel a little bit more optimistic on the eve of this final compared with how you felt heading into last year's final, and what's your experience been today? I think the only difference compared with last year is the fact that obviously we've been in this situation before. The anticipation, the preparation, all of the media duties with you, members of the press, the importance of the match. I think these are matches where it really is the toss of a coin. They're good, we're good, because we both made it to the final, and we need to try and produce a performance befitting of a final. Given that we do have a bit of experience, we can call upon that, and we need to show that experience tomorrow. As for me and how I'm experiencing the build-up to this game, there is a great deal of anticipation on my side, because just as the lads are saying, I hear what they're saying, I read what they're saying, it's sort of revenge for us. We've been good enough to make it back to another European final. It's never easy on the continent because it's tough to make it this far, so we've got the utmost focused. We've done a good job to make it back to another European final, but tomorrow we need to try and do everything in our power to try and avoid making mistakes, to be clinical, to be switched on and focused, everything that's required for a final. You need to play a final with fire in your belly, the utmost application, and give absolutely everything you have. As Biraghi said, last year it wasn't a nice outcome, whereas this year we will try and harness that disappointment to try and make sure that the final ends up differently, albeit we know that our opponents are very strong, so we need to prepare for this, and if they've made it to the final, then this final will be no different to any other final. It'll be very challenging.
Wait a few seconds, translation is still going on. You can go. Good.
Mister, here on your left, Gustavo Hoffman from ESPN.
Please wait. You can put the headphones, and you will have the translations. Yeah.
Okay, again, Gustavo Hoffman from ESPN. Mister, since Dodo, your right back, he has recovered from a serious injury at his knee. Since then, he has been a very good player. He has started the match for Fiorentina. I'd like you please to talk about his importance for the team over these last 2 months, and specifically for the final tomorrow? Thank you.
Ever since Dodò has come back from injury, none of us were expecting to see him in this sort of condition, already fit and firing to produce top-class performances. He's always gone at 100 miles an hour out there on the pitch. We've tried to manage him in terms of the workload, in terms of his playing time. But once he got back to full fitness and once he was 100%, he has played to his usual level. So he's fit. And think about the second leg against Club Brugge in the semi-final. He produced an excellent performance. He's an experienced guy. He knows all about matches such as these, and having him fit and available is, of course, another option for us. We also have Michael Kayode in that position, who's had an excellent league season. We have Davide Faraoni, who's very experienced, who's also helped out both players ever since he joined in January to help them improve. So on the right-hand side, we're pretty well sorted.
Please, on the right, yes.
Giovanni Sardelli, Radio Bruno e Repubblica. Volevo chiedere a
I
Bonaventura.
wanted to ask Giacomo Bonaventura,
Per lui
what would it mean for you to win a trophy for Florence? You've been involved in huge matches, you've had an excellent career, but bringing a trophy back to a city that's so hungry for a piece of silverware. You've scored a lot of goals this season, 8 goals if I'm not mistaken, but you're yet to find the net in the Conference League, so I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Maybe you're saving it for this game. Given that I haven't yet found the net in the Conference League, I do hope to score, but the most important thing in a final is the team's result, and I think all of us need to leave personal contributions to one side to try and produce a big performance and win the match. What was the other question? Yeah, winning a trophy for Florence. It would be even nicer to win a trophy for Florence because it's harder to do so, given that the last piece of silverware was won over 20 years ago. So you can really pick up on the fans' desire to win a trophy. We felt it last season, and this year even more so. They want to win something. They want to have something to celebrate about again, because ever since I joined Fiorentina, I've seen so much passion. I see how much this club means to the people. Coming here as an opponent, playing against Fiorentina, I always noticed that. But ever since I've pulled on the viola colours, I've realised it even more so. We've gone close in recent years, and tomorrow night we have another opportunity. We'll try and win it. A question for the gaffer. What is the key concept, the key word that you will be focusing on before the start of the match, at the start of the match? What will you be focusing on? The key word, the key concept that you'll be really hammering home to your players that could define the situation, that could also motivate them to 110%. I think what they've always heard me say over the course of the last 3 years, both on and off the training ground, on the pitch, in the dressing room, we must never lose our identity. These are matches where, to an even greater extent, you need to show your footballing philosophy, your setup, your shape, that has allowed you to make it to a final in the first place. Albeit on an individual level, you need to tweak things, you need to adapt to the demands of a final, you need to be completely aware of any possible dangers, you need to be as clinical as possible, you need to be as focused as possible in everything you do, even when it comes to a mere throw-in. You need to make sure you take it properly. You need to make sure that you throw the ball to a teammate's feet properly. These are the details. Individually, we do need to tweak things because it's a final and there is no tomorrow. So identity, but also that competitive spirit, that competitive fire, that must never be found wanting. The match is too important. So you need to make sure you have that competitive fire in your belly.
On the left, please.
Buonasera, Tommaso Loreto.
Good evening.
Al capitano, Cristiano
Question
Biraghi,
for the
volevo
captain,
anch'io
Cristiano
tornare
Biraghi.
a un
I'd
anno
also
fa.
like to come
Ovviamente le
back to a
motivazioni
year ago.
non mancano, però
Of
se a
course,
livello
you're not
personale
short of
da parte tua
motivation,
c'è
but
voglia
for
di
you
pizzico di rivalsa in
personally,
più anche
do you have that
per come fu
additional desire
condizionata
for
la tua
revenge
partita, perché
because
la
of the
situazione
way
è
your
così, per come
match
foste
was
costretto
actually
a giocare
conditioned by
con
what
la ferita alla
happened
testa?
with
Grazie.
the fans and the fact you had to play with that cut to your head? Yes, I certainly do feel the desire for revenge to get our own back. But that's the same for everyone that was there last year. That goes from the head coach to my teammates to everyone that works behind the scenes at the club. We all have revenge, we all want to change the outcome of last year that we probably didn't deserve, but unfortunately we made too many mistakes compared with West Ham last year. It was a final and we were quite rightly punished. We've got great desire to exact revenge, to produce a big performance and come away with the trophy, as I said, for all of the hard work that we've put in over the last 3 years with the head coach, for all of the love and support that Florence has shown us over the last few years, and for people, unfortunately, who are no longer with us. We've got a number of reasons. There's so much motivation. We really want to go one better this time around. So all we have to do now is wait for the match, hope it can come around as quickly as possible, because once you get here, you want to get out there and play immediately. We're here and we want to win the match. Good afternoon, everyone. A question for the gaffer. One of the strengths of Olympiacos is their top scorer, who's called El Kabi. He's scored 10 goals in 8 matches. What's your plan to stop this player? We've brought some chains and padlocks with us. No, all jokes aside, he also comes into this match and this final with the utmost of self-belief, because in their recent matches in Europe, he and the team have gone on a really impressive run, just as we have. We come into this match unbeaten, and in their recent games they've also produced some top-class performances. They beat one of the favourites to win the Conference League in the semi-final, and they have produced some top-class performances along the way, and El Kabi is scoring consistently. He's very dangerous from every perspective, far from goal, inside the box. He runs into space in behind. He's in form. We know that he's one of the strengths of our opponents, along with a number of other factors. And we have tried to prepare a tactical game plan which will allow us to limit his impact. But as I said, we'll be doing so with the utmost of selflessness and concentration. We will be able to achieve it. If you go out there and you don't play with those characteristics, this player can cause you problems, above all because, as I said, he's full of confidence at the moment because of the way he's been ending the season in superb form.
Question, please.
Καλησπέρα. Κωνσταντόπουλος από Nova.
Wait, just the time to wait for them.
Hello, welcome to our city. There has been a lot of discussion about the last year's final that you lost. So in order for you to make full use of your opportunities, would it be better for you to play in another city, in another stadium, so that Olympiacos is not familiar with it? Because this is a stadium in which Olympiacos has won in a very competitive match. The question is addressed to the coach.
I didn't know that Olympiacos had already won in this stadium, so that's another additional danger to all of the ones we've already listed.
alla fine quando si scende in campo
But ultimately,
ci si dimentica di tutto,
when you go out
tutto
there on
passa
the
in secondo
pitch, you
piano,
forget
11 contro
everything.
11.
It
Metà
all
stadio sarà
becomes of
per la
secondary
Fiorentina,
importance.
metà
It's
per
11 v
l'Olympiacos.
11. Half of the
Sì,
stadium will
loro
be
giocano
supporting
nella
Fiorentina,
città
half of
dove
the
vivono,
stadium will be
dove
supporting
giocano.
Olympiacos. Yes, they're playing in a
Questo,
stadium
secondo
which is
me,
housed in
non
their
cambia
city,
nulla,
in
perché
the
nel momento
city
in cui
that they
fischia
call
l'arbitro
home, but that
dentro
doesn't
al
matter.
rettangolo di
As
gioco,
and when the referee blows the first
tutto
whistle
passa in
out there on the
secondo piano.
pitch, everything will
Per
become of
loro
secondary
non hanno
importance. It's good for
viaggiato come
them.
abbiamo fatto noi,
They haven't
non
travelled as we have.
abbiamo preparato con anticipo alcune situazioni.
We've
Hanno
prepared
la
a few
possibilità di
situations in
lavorare a
advance.
casa,
They've had the
però,
opportunity
ripeto,
to
nel
work
momento in cui
at
si scende
home.
in campo,
But as I've said, as and when you step out there,
50-50, come dico sempre,
this
rimane
50-50, as I always say, ultimately comes down to the team that has greater desire, hunger to win, more of that fire in their belly, as I said to the lads. These are matches which will allow you to either celebrate or ultimately not achieve what you want. Given that we've already been through that, we need to put everything to one side, focus on ourselves. Olympiacos are our opponents. They're a team that we've studied, we've watched their matches, and all we need to do now is go out there on the pitch and give everything that we've got from a strategic perspective as individuals, as a team, and hope to come out on top. Good evening. A question for Bonaventura. First and foremost, how are you in terms of fitness? Because you've had a few niggles over the last month. And are you ready to play as a deep-lying playmaker or as a number 10? I want to get a bit more information out of you. No, I'm good. Feeling good. I got a number of minutes under my belt in my most recent appearance, so I feel good. As for my position tomorrow, we don't know what the starting 11 is going to be, because the head coach always tells us the starting 11 the day of the match. We pretty much know the game plan, but ultimately we'll get into more detail on that tomorrow, and we'll also understand all of the individual roles of individual players. I don't think he'll ask us to make wholesale changes in comparison with what we've done so far. That's what our game plan's all about. Our footballing principles are always the same.
Please. ViolaNews.com. Yeah, you can go, please. Go ahead.
Giovanni Zecchi, ViolaNews.com, Radio Bruno. Una domanda a Cristiano.
A question for Cristiano. A number of your teammates in press conferences have said, we have changed, we have grown. This is year 3 under Vincenzo Italiano. This is your 3rd final. You know what Fiorentina are all about. How has this team changed over the last 3 years? And have you really matured completely as a team now? In year 1, Fiorentina weren't in Europe. Then you had a difficult time, and yet by year 3, you're into your 2nd consecutive European final.
La crescita penso che è stata esponenziale e si vede.
I think we've had exponential growth.
E questo lo dico sempre in un
I
calcio
always
dove
say
ormai
this
va talmente veloce che si
in
cambiano tanti
football,
allenatori,
the
si
footballing
cambiano
world,
tanti
which
giocatori.
moves so
Abbiamo
quickly.
avuto la fortuna di
When players and coaches come and go, we've had the good fortune to work for the same coach for 3 years. I've never been a head coach, but I imagine for a coach to have time to work, to be able to build something over time is extremely important. We often say it to one another that a number of mistakes that we made in year 1, we didn't then repeat them in season 2, then other mistakes emerged and we tweaked and corrected them. So it's understandable that come year 3, we have matured. You're never perfect. There's no such thing as perfection. So you always strive towards that, but it is very challenging to achieve. But ultimately, after the 3 years in which we've worked, there is development for all to see. And we can see that on a daily basis as well, us the players. We've had 3 spectacular years, and for another year we'll be involved in European competition next season. We don't know which competition, but we have qualified. I don't know how many matches we've played over 2 or 3 years, 100 plus games, but we've put in so much effort. Everyone has been called upon. Everyone has played their part in this process. Of course, tomorrow night's result won't necessarily change my thoughts or the team's thoughts as for these 3 wonderful years. I was here before this 3-year period. I know where we were before here, and we certainly weren't involved in press conferences such as these. So the fact that this is a 3rd final in the space of 2 years, often people say that results speak for themselves, and we have achieved some incredible results. Tomorrow night's match is a very important match. It's perhaps the most important match. We first and foremost want to win the game to try and sign off this season with a trophy. It's been 3 years that we've been chasing silverware, and we've been producing blood, sweat and tears day in, day out. Good evening. I wanted to ask the head coach, over the last 3 years under you, Fiorentina have done very well in cup competitions. In the league, however, we've never managed to raise the bar and finish above the 8th or 7th position from your first season. What are your regrets? What have been the limitations in Serie A over the last 3 years?
Ma io penso che per te mi ero dimenticato del campionato. Mi hai fatto venire in mente te.
I'd forgotten Serie A. You've brought it back to mind. I was so focused on the Conference League. So speaking about Serie A, I need to actually wind back the tape a second. The truth is,
in Europa qualcosa ti toglie.
Ultimately, whether you like it or not, the run in Europe does take something out of you. Because in the Conference League in particular, when you play on Thursday nights, you don't actually have much time to recover and prepare for matches. Yes, we're able to rotate the squad, get fresh legs on, mix things up, players that can get minutes under their belt and produce performances, but I do really believe that it does take something out of you. I think the focus that we've shown in Europe has occasionally gone awry in Serie A. But I don't think we've done too badly in Serie A. We came 7th, we finished 8th on 2 occasions. We've always qualified for Europe. Of course, we all wanted to achieve a bit more, but we haven't managed to. But it remains 2 European finals that we've reached, and that's a huge source of pride. It's not easy. We've always managed to come up with different game plans across first and second legs in European ties, especially in the return leg, to come up with a different game plan and take the step up that we wanted to. We've always managed to make sure we go into the game in the right frame of mind, and that has allowed us to reach 2 European finals. Ultimately, between Serie A, the Conference League, the Coppa Italia, and we've also added the semi-finals of the Italian Super Cup this season, I think our overall process has been very positive. And I say that in all honesty, because I'll finish by saying that when I first came to Florence, the idea of coming into a press conference like this, as Cristiano Biraghi was saying, 2 years in a row, was the furthest thing from my mind. So coming here with this squad, to always be involved in these semi-finals and finals, it was inconceivable for me when I first took over. Tomorrow we have the opportunity to reach this wonderful success that we've been chasing after for a number of years. I think the league season is behind us. We can put it to one side, and this is where our focus lies. This is our main objective, namely to produce a great performance tomorrow.
Next question, please.
A question for Giacomo Bonaventura, but it also goes for Cristiano Biraghi. Given that how last year's final went last year, do you also have a point to prove because you've not been called up for the Italy squad for Euro 2024 for Cristiano Biraghi? And this might be one of your last matches as a Fiorentina player, no?
Allora, per quanto riguarda
As for the Italy call-ups, I think that's part and parcel of a footballer's career. There is joy, sadness, success and failure. You need to try and put it to one side and forget about it. This is the match which is important for us. We have the desire to perform well, and as it's been said, we've gone close in 2 finals in the past, and this time around we don't want to make any more mistakes. We've certainly learned from previous seasons, from the finals that we've been involved in, and we really will try to bring down to the utmost the margin for error.
Buonasera a tutti, Matteo Rovellini, La Repubblica e Radio Bruno.
Good evening. A question for the head coach. I'd like to go a bit further back. When you first moved to Florence in the summer of 2021 until now the summer of 2024, how much has Fiorentina changed? How much have you changed? I think this is the 117th match that Fiorentina have had in the last 2 seasons. It's probably around 160 games over 3 seasons. So how much have Fiorentina matured and how much have you matured, Gaffer? What has inspired you to make it this far? And what do you think back to when you let the images of last season's final defeat in Prague wash over you?
Ma io in questi 3 anni è normale.
It's only natural that someone changes over the course of 3 years. I am different to how I was 3 years ago. My dream was to make it into Europe with Fiorentina, and I managed that. That was my first time coaching in Europe. So my knowledge, therefore, grew. As a result, we've also reached 2 finals. So the knowledge of how to prepare for that game, the anticipation, what it means to prepare for a final. Along with the players, we have changed so many things on the pitch, technical and tactical aspects. I've also learned all about new concepts. So nothing has been found wanting over the last 3 years in terms of individual achievements, team achievements, tactical tweaks. There have been so many of those. So I do think I am different. I don't think I've got better or grown, but I certainly am a different man. And I am happy about that, but I knew that that would come to pass. As and when you're able to pick from players of this level, a number of international players, a number of foreign players, a number of experienced players, less experienced players, young players, you already know that you need to change your approach to a certain extent. I'm very happy about that, and I'm a very different man to the one I was in 2021, as you mentioned. When I think about Prague, I think about a game that we approached as best we could, but some of the big moments in the match prevented us from celebrating, from having a smile on our face come the end of the match. And above all, I think back to the players' expressions at the final whistle. I don't want to see those expressions tomorrow. And as I said, we need to approach the game as if it were the last. No one will ever give you the guarantee that you can make it back to another European final. No one can ever say to you, you start the season and see you in Athens. So no one's thought that we'd be back here, and yet we are back here. We've done a good job to make it back to the Conference League final, and tomorrow we need to go out there and imagine that every ball was the last of our career. just like every situation, and live it as if it were our last. Every single aspect of the game, because no one can give you the guarantee that you'll be back here again in such wonderful stadia such as these. And so tomorrow, unlike Prague, we need to really put those aspects out there on the pitch. Prague hurt, it hurt me, it hurt Jack, it hurt Biraghi, all of Florence, everyone at the club. We all know what you feel when you don't win a final, so we'll try and turn the situation on its head tomorrow.
Zoran Mishevski, Media Macedone, per Mr. Italiano, complimenti per arrivare in un'altra finale.
Congratulations for making it to another final. What has Mendilibar changed at Olympiacos? He's an experienced coach. They play a little bit differently. Have you prepared this game with a different perspective when it comes to a penalty shootout? Based on what we've seen ever since the new head coach came in, they have struck on success because it's their third head coach, because they have sorted things out. Since Mendilibar came in, they've also done very well in Europe. They've beaten some top-class opposition along the way. And what we've seen is that they're a very organised side. They're a team that know how to press. They're a team that know how to get behind the ball. They can be very direct in the way they attack. It's a team, as I said earlier on, which has experienced quality players, talented footballers. They're a team that have made it to the final. And the fact that they've made it to the final already shows what a good side they are. Because that's already the calling card for a team if they're good enough to make it to a final. What frightens us the most is perhaps the feel-good factor. What we need to do is to try and cause them problems when we have possession. Because whenever you have possession, then of course teams will afford you opportunities, and when we have opportunities we need to try and take them so that we can hurt a team. If we're able to play with quality, we can cause them problems. As for penalty shootout, we have practiced them, but ultimately, if I'm honest, we stopped. But that is a possibility. We have a number of players that have the character to take them. We've made it through 2 rounds of the Coppa Italia on a penalty shootout. We've missed a few penalties in Serie A, and that probably stopped us from finishing a little bit higher up the league table. But from that perspective, we have a number of players who have the big character and the ability to step up to the penalty spot and make sure they keep cool heads and are clinical. We'll see how things pan out. A question for the captain. You're the leader of this team. I know between now and the game you'll be thinking only about the match. What will you say as a captain? What will you say after the match to try and convince the head coach to stay on for next season? I don't know. You're taking it for granted that I'm leaving. No, you seem to know more than me. No, you know, until he tells us, maybe I say to him, "Oh, Gaffer, stay," and he says, "What you on about? I'm staying." I have heard over the last month that you've been saying to the gaffer there have been rumours about your future, but he's been answering today focused on tomorrow's match. This is actually the case. I've never at one stage thought whether he will or will not be here for next season. We've got a final to play, but regardless of the final, up until 48 hours ago at Cagliari we had another target, which was to try and seal the Conference League for another season.
la scomparsa di Joe, c'è talmente tante cose a cui
Plus,
pensare
Joe
che
Barone died as well. There have been so
veramente
many
complicato.
things that we've been thinking about, so many tricky
L'unica cosa
situations to
che
handle.
posso dire
All I can say
è
is,
che domani intanto facciamo quello che dobbiamo fare. Poi
first and foremost, let's try and do what we need to do tomorrow.
no, venerdì neanche. Non mi
Come
viene.
Thursday, Friday, no.
No, dai, dopo,
I don't want to
questa
see you,
finale
to be
che
honest.
Dobbiamo veramente cercare a tutti i costi di vincere.
After this final, we need to try and do everything in our power to win it.
Un'alchimia tra squadra,
But there really has been this wonderful synergy between the players, the coach, the club, the city of Florence. There's this wonderful feeling between all of us. It's too important. It's so important for us to pay tribute to all of that by winning the trophy. As and when the coach tells us what his plans are, I'll think about that afterwards. But it's before your eyes what he's achieved over the last 3 years. If his decision was to leave the club, of course we'd be hugely disappointed, because besides the fact that we have a wonderful special relationship, but from a footballing perspective he's given us so much. But it's not right to talk about that. Come on, let's talk about this on Friday or Saturday. I'll give you an answer then.
Take the next question at the back.
Grazie. Per una domanda per Vincenzo Italiano sono qua.
Question for Vincenzo Italiano. 2 quick questions. First, have you thought about a rating that you would give if you were to win the competition, a rating out of 10? And if you were to win the competition, could that have an influence on your future in football in terms of the decision you'll be making?
Fioretto non ci ho pensato.
I haven't thought about any possible rating. I'll think about it now.
C'ho un ginocchio che non me lo permette. Già dopo 3 metri si inizia a gonfiare, quindi non posso farlo.
No, there's no real way that I can celebrate because I've got a dodgy knee as well. So I'll think about how I might celebrate.
La battuta è non capiterà, ma se dovesse capitare.
The joke is it won't happen, but if it were to happen, then I think we need to, we won't even mention it, but we'll come up with our own special way of celebrating that success. As for the future,
mi sa che il telefono spesso è spento.
I often turn my phone off, or I mute it. I'm not interested in listening to anything. The only place where my focus lies, given that the semi-final wasn't played all that long ago, was to actually focus on all of the important matches. We had the Cagliari game, as Biraghi said, which was important. We had the game before that against Napoli to make sure we stayed ahead of one of our opponents. Now we've got this final. To be perfectly honest, I don't want to get distracted by thinking about anything else. Anything can happen. Football is strange. There's no such thing as a guarantee in football, so let's think about this match and then we'll assess things after that.
Next question, please.
Sì, Duccio Mazzoni di Radio Repubblica per Jack. Cristiano a Vienna.
Question for Giacomo Bonaventura. At the start of this second European campaign, Cristiano Biraghi in Vienna said that it was one of the strongest Fiorentina sides he's been involved in. Does the same go for you? And ever since you came here 4 or 5 seasons ago, you chose Fiorentina to try and play matches like this, didn't you? Did you ever think you'd be involved so consistently in European matches when you joined for Fiorentina? No, when I signed for the club, I picked up on that feel-good factor. The president and Joe Barone, who were go-getters, who really had it in their mind to develop the team. And over the years, a number of players have joined who have contributed a great deal to Fiorentina. I think this season, in terms of experience and the experience that we've gained over the years, the team has matured with regards to the cup competitions. It's been a good campaign because we also played with the knowledge that we were a strong side. And given the experience that we had in previous seasons, this is certainly the most complete Fiorentina team that I've been a part of. The same goes for me.
Come Jack, penso che
I think the same as Jack.
io non ho potuto giocare nelle Fiorentine che lottava per
I
il
wasn't able to play in the
Da quando
Fiorentina
sono io,
sides that competed for the
sicuramente la
Scudetto, the
squadra più
Italian domestic
completa,
title, but ever since I've been at the club, it is the most complete
un
team.
lavoro di 3 anni importante dove ha avuto una
We've done
maturità
significant
importante, dove
work
tanti
over the
giocatori
last 3
di
years.
grande qualità hanno aggiunto
We've
qualcosina.
brought in some quality
Grazie al
players who've
lavoro di
certainly
tutti i
played their
giorni.
part.
Con una
Thanks to the
società
work we
dietro
do on a
che
daily
investe
basis,
molto
the club has been
tempo,
behind us
denaro, ci
with
mette tutto a
investment in
disposizione,
terms of
quindi
time and money. They
come
have given us everything we need.
continuo a pensare che sia la migliore
So
che sono
I
stato io.
still think this is the best team I've been a part of. A question for the head coach. Regardless of your future, that's already been touched upon. I wanted to ask you whether tomorrow night's game could ultimately round off the circle, if you will. Of course, everyone wants to finish with a piece of silverware, but winning is not always necessarily about bringing silverware back home. Regardless of the result tomorrow, do you think you've won this challenge over the last 3 years in Florence? Has it been a success?
Secondo me è stato fatto un gran lavoro, ma
I think we've done a great job.
dal momento in cui siamo di nuovo qui,
But as and
dobbiamo
when
domani
you're in a
cercare
Conference League final again,
di aggiungere
tomorrow we need to try
qualcosina
and
a questo
add something
percorso
more,
ottimo,
add something a bit more to this
straordinario
excellent,
sotto tanti punti di
extraordinary
vista,
run from
pieno
many
di
perspectives.
record, pieno di
It's been full of
soddisfazioni,
records,
pieno di
it's been
semifinali,
full
di
of
finali,
success,
però,
semi-finals and final appearances.
tornando al discorso di prima, che
But coming back to what I was saying
nessuno sa quale
before,
sarà il futuro,
no one knows what the future
in
holds
termini di presenze
in
in
terms
altre finali,
of
soprattutto
whether
europee,
you'll be
domani.
back for another
Dobbiamo
European
cercare di
final.
fare
So
di
tomorrow
tutto
we need to
per
try and do everything in our
aggiungere
power
questa ciliegina, come diciamo
to
tutti, quindi
add the
è questo il
icing on the
pensiero.
cake. And that's the first thought in my mind.
We'll take the last 3 questions.
Guglielmo Buccheri, La Stampa. Quando una squadra italiana
When
gioca
an
una
Italian
finale,
team
rappresenta
plays
il paese. Voi
final,
domani non solo
they always
rappresentate il
represent the
paese, ma avete
country. You're not
l'opportunità
only
di legare
representing
all'Italia
Italy tomorrow,
un
but you
record
also
mai
have the
visto, chissà se mai
opportunity to
potremo parlare in questi termini.
secure a
Nove
record
squadre
for Italy
in
tomorrow,
Europa.
in that there could
Quanto
be
vi aggiunge al
9
vostro
Italian teams
orgoglio
qualified
poter
for
vivere anche
Europe tomorrow.
una situazione del
How
genere?
much would that be a
Cambiamo modo,
source of
ne avremo modo di
pride
vedere
if you could make that
proprio la
happen?
dimensione europea della
I think
Fiorentina.
that shows just what a European side Fiorentina would be, no?
No, abbiamo anche questa, tra virgolette, responsabilità in più.
Yeah, we've also got that
sarebbe
additional
davvero
responsibility, if you will. It would be absolutely spectacular.
Vedo calcio, seguo calcio, penso
Ever
che
since
9
I've been
squadre in
watching
Europa,
football,
mai accaduto, sbaglio?
I don't think it's ever occurred that there have been 9 teams from the same country in European competition. It's never happened. So tomorrow we also have this responsibility
Anche questa gioia
to try and
al Torino,
secure that
quindi
joy for Torino.
Oltre a quello che già sappiamo.
So besides what we already know in terms of for ourselves Fiorentina, we'll also try and play very well to try and secure another European qualifier for Italy. It's always nice to play matches such as these. I've realised that over the last 2 years, so we'll do everything in our power to try and win so that our friends in Torino can enjoy a European campaign too.
Buonasera, sono Leonardo Bardazzi,
Good evening.
Fiorentino, eccomi qua più. Mister, se ci racconta l'incontro con
Could you talk to us about your meeting with Rocco Commisso, the president who's just come here? I imagine that he's very keen to win the match as much as you are. And if I can ask Giacomo, I'd like to come back to what you've already been asked. Oh, one question, okay.
Yeah, one question.
I'll settle for one.
No,
Sorry, Giacomo.
come sempre, carico.
As ever, the president is really up for
Non
it.
è come me che soffre i viaggi in
He's
aereo,
not
lui
like
arriva,
me
ne fa
who
16-17 ore, arriva felice,
struggles with
contento,
flights. He
sorridente.
comes in 16, 18-hour flights, big smile on his face, spring in his step. He's up for it. Him, his wife.
Un piacere vederlo.
It's always nice to see him.
Carico.
He's
Oggi
very,
ha
very
fatto
fired
il
up for
discorso
it.
alla squadra.
As soon as he arrived, he gave a talk to the team, and his enthusiasm, his desire is wonderful. He really conveys all the confidence and belief that you require in difficult matches such as these. I mustn't add that, of course, tomorrow there will be a few extra drops of sweat for the president, for his family, for Joe Barone, for Joe Barone's family, for everything that we've been through over the last few months, above all, this tragedy. Fiorentina and the president, given that you asked me about him, he really didn't deserve to go through such a tough time losing a dear friend as he did in the shape of Joe Barone. In the dressing rooms there are two pictures of Joe and the president, and tomorrow the players already know that more than an extra drop of sweat needs to be shed for them, and we'll try to do that in every way possible.
And last question, please.
Hello, good afternoon, welcome. You talked a lot about the past.
Give them the time to put the headphones on.
Hello, you talked a lot about the past.
You can go. Thank you.
About last season and about the future. It seems like this is the end of an era. A circle is closing for Fiorentina, as far as we can understand, and you expressed your great desire. But the question is, have you ever dreamt of the moment you raise the trophy up in the sky? And the second question, any possibility of having you in Greece to next year? As a coach, I mean?
Ci ho provato, mi sono concentrato qualche notte per vedere di sognare.
A few nights I have really focused on trying to dream about lifting the trophy, above all the players lifting the trophy, but I've never succeeded on that score. So that either means that it's either reality or it will be confined to a dream, and that's it. As for everything else, I've never really thought about it. Who knows? In the future, anything could happen. I think I'm still a young man. One of the best coaches in Italy, one of the most beloved coaches, retired from his club at 72 years old, Claudio Ranieri. I'm 46, there's still a long way to go, so anything can happen. So let's now focus on what the here and now does, and then we'll see.
Thank you very much. The next press conference will start at 6:15 with Olympiacos. Thank you.